Hi, I'm Jerry Katz with the Minnesota Nurses Association. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Matt MacWilliams and Rick Fuentes. Matthew founded MacWilliams Sanders Communication nearly 30 years ago, and he's built it into one of the leading strategic media firms for candidates, initiatives, unions, causes, foundations, and progressive organizations across the United States. Prior to founding the firm, among other things, Matthew served as deputy campaign manager for Minnesotans, listen up, Walter Mondale for president. Okay. And he's also worked as a media advisor for Congressman Bruce Vento and several current and former members of Congress. His current work includes audience and strategic messaging research and testing, and communications production and placement for a wide variety of progressive organizations and foundations in the United States and throughout Europe. Matthew has a PhD from the University of Massachusetts Amherst, where he's a visiting researcher. And his research on authoritarianism has been in great demand lately. His work on American authoritarianism and Donald Trump has appeared in Politico, Vox, Political Science Quarterly, Political Science and Politics, the London School of Economics blog, and 2 separate books on irrational politics, which I didn't know was a thing, but irrational politics is a thing. And his work has been cited by over 200 media outlets around the world. And he's the author of The Rise of Trump, America's Authoritarian Spring, published prior to the 2016 election. Matthew's foundation, the American and European Society Research Project, is currently working with the Open Society Institute for Europe and leading organizations across Europe researching and analyzing the rise of authoritarian populism. And he's presented his findings to European leaders in Berlin, Paris, Rome, Vienna, London, and last week, Warsaw. So that's Dr. Matt MacWilliams, and working with Matt is Rick Fuentes, who is the communication specialist from the Minnesota Nurses Association. He has been in charge of our strategic communications since 2012. And Rick is a former television news reporter working across the USA for about 20 years, most recently for CBS. So please welcome Matt MacWilliams and Rick Fuentes.
Well, it's nice to get applause because about 2.5 years ago when I was speaking in Bratislava to the Shaping of Future of Europe conference, and I said, it's all authoritarianism that is taking over Europe. The 150 people I was speaking to all started booing me, including the finance minister of Germany, which was quite an interesting moment. But now they kind of like what I had to say because they realize, yeah, that's kind of right. Welcome all, welcome to Minnesota. And it's beautiful here today, as you know, but when the focus groups I'm reporting on, and that's what you're going to hear from me, results of focus groups, along with Rick, when they were conducted, the weather was quite different. First, there were blizzard conditions for 2 days, and that was followed by below zero weather for a few more days, and then balmy sub-freezing 20s. As one man remarked to me in Duluth, where the sun was shining and the thermometer stood at about 9 Fahrenheit, not Celsius, he said to me with a big smile, "What a beautiful day." I said, only in Minnesota would 9 degrees above zero be considered a beautiful day. So welcome to Minnesota. I said to Rick, I think this is the first time I've been in Minnesota where it hasn't been snow on the ground, because I'm always here in the winter doing focus groups. And now let's get to work answering some questions. And so first, with a show of hands, I want you to answer this question. Here it is. Do you support or oppose a single-payer health care system where all Americans will get their health insurance from government? Do you, let's start with strongly oppose this. Who strongly opposes this? Ooh, good. Somewhat oppose this. Now, when I was speaking at the Smokeless Tobacco Conference, they all opposed it. No, I was just kidding. How about somewhat support? How about strongly? Oh, one. Okay, thank you. Strongly support. All right. And I would say quickly, keep up. I'd say with my great statistical insight, that's 98.7% of the crowd here strongly support single payer. But those of you who don't, that 1.3%, I won't out you, okay? What about Americans? What about Americans? Here's how America answered this question. In a recent poll conducted for Morning Consult for Politico, by Morning Consult for Politico. This poll is fresh off the presses. It's June 7th through June 10th, and it was a good sample size. 1,994 Americans did this. And so here are a few things you can see from this poll right away. Just 50% of Americans support single payer right now, even though health care is a top issue concern. Every poll I have seen, and I see way too many of them, has health care as a top concern, a top worry among Americans. But only 27% of Americans in this poll strongly support single payer. 27%, that's not enough. In this room, we're all strong supporters, except for that 1.3%. In all probability, we have a lot in common attitudinally and demographically with this 27% who strongly support single payer. But we are probably somewhat different, and I'm using probability, not binary yes or no. We are probably somewhat different in important ways, however, with the 73% of the rest of Americans who are not strong supporters of single payer at this time. And that's key, at this time. And I would wager the reasons we support single payer, everyone in this room, the message we all agree on collectively in this room, and we think that are persuasive, the language we use to talk about single payer amongst ourselves is less effective, less meaningful, and less persuasive with these other Americans, the 73%. In short, what we think are good reasons to support single payer, why we think people should support it, the messages that sound good, so good to us when we're talking to each other here, may not work well with the rest of America. And we need the rest of America. And we need to recognize that the way we think about it and feel about it is different than they do right now. Now, some might argue in this room, oh, they aren't hearing our message. That's possible. They don't know what I know. Well, that's possible too. They're wrong and I am right. The I am right and you are wrong answer or argument is never going to work. It's never going to work. It's never going to persuade people. So it was this message problem, this message disconnect between us, people in this room, and so many other Americans that led M&A to fund the focus group research I'm presenting today. And we asked first, is there a message disconnect? We didn't assume that. You don't assume that in research. You asked, is there a message disconnect? And we found, yep, there is. And then we said, if so, okay, how do we bridge it? Because healthcare is a top concern. It's something people are really worried about, something they're really concerned about, something that affects their lives, but they aren't with us on single payer. How do we bridge it? The research and findings that came out of this research provide an advantage, I think, to the single payer movement, a real advantage, which I'm about to, and I'm really proud to have participated in this research. I want to thank M&A for that. And I think it's something we should thank everyone at M&A for, Jerry, Shannon, Rose, the M&A board, and every one of the M&A members for making this possible, because it costs money. And I'd also just like to point out Rick, because Rick is our Minnesota interpreter for me. And without Rick, this research would have been okay, but not really good. And instead, I think it's really good. All right, so M&A wanted to know what some Minnesotans, that's key, know, feel, think, hope, believe, or fear when they hear the phrases single payer and healthcare. What cognitive connections, and that's what this is really about, already exist in their minds, as in single payer equals what? What does single payer equal for them? What cognitive barriers and opportunities exist for our messaging? There's some barriers there's some opportunities. We got to match them up. We got to know what they are. What do Americans think of health insurance companies? And how does that compare to how they feel about government? And you might say, well, why are you asking that question? Well, because if single payer replaces insurance companies with the government, the relative standing of these two entities in people's minds is really critically important. Do they think healthcare needs to be fixed? It's pretty obvious. When we did these groups, it was a question. It's not a question anymore. And what, if anything, again, does the term single payer mean to them? You know, we look at that poll that I just showed you, and it says, very quantitatively, analyzing this poll data, single payer, 27% of Americans strongly support it. But what do they think of when they hear the term or see the term, if they're doing this poll online, single payer? What does it mean to them? And I think you're going to find it means different things to them than it does to us, and different things than we would expect. So how do they define single payer? So you might say, okay, so why are we asking these questions? The simple answer is this: even though healthcare is a top concern among Americans right now, we are not winning the single payer battle yet. We have a great opportunity now to win single payer. I really think so. I didn't think so 6 months ago, but as you see it rise in the poll, I'm thinking more and more it is. But we're also confronted with great challenges and barriers, and you must recognize those challenges and barriers because they stand between you and communicating with the other 73% of Americans. And we need to ascertain if the messages and values that brought you here today will win the single payer struggle when the fight is fully engaged, because it's not fully engaged yet. It will be. When you get close, pharma, insurance companies, they're all going to kick in even more than they're doing right now. And I've seen it years and years and years. We've all seen it. It's going to happen. So what do we have to do? Well, we need to fight smarter. That's what we need. And we begin this smarter fight with a smarter message and smarter message strategy. Now, you may wonder what I meant when I said M&A wanted to know what some Minnesotans know, feel, think, believe, hope, fear when they hear the word single payer and healthcare. Well, the M&A focus groups were not geared to every Minnesotan, to represent all Minnesotans. We just want to talk to some Minnesotans. We want to talk to those people who somewhat support, somewhat oppose, or don't know what single payer is. Those are the key people. The strongly supporters, they're here, they're in this room, we gotcha. We're all together. The strongly opposed, we're not going to get them. You know, we might get one or two of them, 4%, 5% of them, that's not enough. And we could spend all our time with them, it wouldn't make a difference. So we need to know what these other people are thinking, these some Minnesotans are thinking. How do we screen them? How do we do these groups? There were 8 focus groups. They were divided by gender because we never put men and women together in the group. Why? Every woman in this room knows why. You all know why. Excuse my language here, but men make shit up and they don't listen to people, especially women. It's just the way it is. I am so embarrassed for my gender whenever I see a focus group. It's just like, how could you possibly believe that? I can't. It's just amazing. And it's true everywhere. It's true everywhere. It's true in Europe. It's worse. Okay, we looked at a pretty broad age range, 25 to 70. Notice there are 3 groups in greater Minnesota and only one in the Twin Cities. Why? Because we really wanted to go out to greater Minnesota to hear what they had to say. All political parties were included, but we excluded people who we thought would be Trumpistas and people who would be strong supporters of single payer. Why? Because we don't need to hear from them, though we like you guys a lot. And we had a full range of health insurance, some people without it, some people with a gold employer plan. There are not many of them around anymore. And we looked at people and recruited people from the voter file because we wanted people who voted, and we didn't want focus group pros. And then finally, we did a broad range of income and employment. So that's how we selected people for these groups. Long screener. Now, some small print. This is qualitative, not quantitative. So what does this mean? The findings don't mirror Minnesota as a whole. The findings provide some insights into how some Minnesotans think about single payer, and the findings can be used very effectively to refine messages, arguments, and how policy is framed. That's what it's about. It's qualitative, not quantitative research. What do we learn? Well, let's start with this. Barriers to and opportunities for single payer abound. And some of the barriers out there are self-inflicted wounds that we create. For example, how would you answer this question? Is health care a right or a privilege? How many people say right? Raise your hand. Oh, okay, quick, wait, scan back. Okay, how many say privilege? Okay, we're 100% on right. That 1.3% went to right. Okay, now stop for a moment and consider something here. Can health care be something other than just a right or a privilege? Yeah, why is it a binary choice? It has been framed as a binary choice because it is good to have it framed as a binary choice by our opponents. That's why. You know, right and wrong, black and white, Republican, Democrat, good and evil, right or privilege. To people in the Minnesota focus groups, right or privilege is simply a polarized debate. When you say single payer because health care is a right, they hear, oh, you might just be a Democrat if you say right. And that immediately puts you in a partisan political context. And if you say privilege, you might just be a Republican if you say privilege. Instead, what these Minnesotans said when we asked them this, they said healthcare is a basic need. Healthcare is a basic need. It's not a right or a privilege. They didn't like that language. And I would say if you persist in saying healthcare is a right, you're falling into a partisan, polarized message trap. You can believe it's a right, but just say it's a basic need. And what are you losing if you replace right in your messaging with basic need? The only thing I think you're losing is a barrier to communicating with people we need to communicate with. Is that all we learned? We got some more findings. What else? People think that healthcare system is broken. Insurance, access, delivery, and billing are perceived as a disaster movie without end, and it's not a good disaster movie, okay? People also think insurance is too complicated. Really, the 3 Bs, bureaucracy, billing, and barriers to care. That's all it is. And if you're all taking notes, you can have this presentation too. I don't want to have your hands, I see your hands going quickly there. Health insurance and health care is irrational, indecipherable to people, and at its core, they feel it's unfair, the people we talk to. And that unfairness borders on resentment, and that resentment is something we have to be very careful about. Because that resentment is resentment of people who don't look like me. They get health care. I work hard. I don't get health care. They say, and this quotes, people fall in between the cracks when it comes to health care. Quote, those people, the undeserving is what they mean, go to the emergency room all the time. They get health care for free. And when it comes to insurance, they say it's rife with greed. It's a business. So we little people end up paying for it. I can't tell you how angry it makes me to hear people, Americans, call themselves little people. There's something fundamentally wrong when that happens, because they're people, they're not little people. It's replete with costs, rising costs. A farmer said to us, my family got priced out of the health insurance market. And they know that insurance companies are just untrustworthy bottom line middlemen, okay? They know that. So what do you think? This healthcare system is broken. Is this a barrier or an opportunity for us? How many think it's a barrier? How many think an opportunity? That's it, yeah, okay, it's a big opportunity. It's a big opportunity. And, well, granted, you probably knew that about insurance companies. You say, why did M&A waste its money on focus groups? So tell us that. Because there's something else we found, which you might have known also, but when you hear it, it really, I think, is striking. You probably didn't know that people don't trust the government to make changes that solve the problems with the healthcare system, because the government is not perceived as working for them. And I'm not referring to the transitory Trump administration. I'm talking about the institution known as our government, right? They don't think it works to them. And what we're trading off when we say single payer, we're trading Geico for government. That's the trade-off. And neither one of them is seen on their side of these some Minnesotans. And that's a problem. If we're saying single payer is the best thing since sliced bread, we're going to get rid of your insurance company and replace it Replace it with the government. They're going, that's not good for me. Okay, so that's a problem. Our solution replaces one untrusted entity with another. And it's really not a clear-cut win for them. To us, government is the people, a way we work to get things done. And in fact, in the focus groups, they kept saying they don't like government, they don't like government. We sent in a message saying, ask them what government is. Because we think it is the government is something that can work for us. It's we the people, we can make it work, right? No, to them, government's something else. It is not inclusive, not accessible, not welcoming. It's composed of elites and insiders and special interests, bureaucrats and bureaucratic red tape. It's inefficient, and worst of all, it's stacked against people like them. They don't trust the system or the government to make positive change. That is a gigantic problem for us. Political polarization exacerbates this problem. It erodes trust in government, institutions, groups, organizations, NGOs, foundations, and you as advocates. That polarized debate, that's why you don't want to fall into right or privilege. You want to talk about basic need, because you don't want to fall into that polarized debate. It's not worth it. It stands in your way. And polarization, as we know, it's not diminishing right now. It's really increasing. That's Trump's game. He wants polarized America. He loves it. He's like well, I won't say what I was going to say. He's like a pig in shit when it comes to that. Excuse me, I'm sorry. My wife would be very unhappy. So government replacing insurance companies is only a plus with people who like or believe in the importance of government to do good. And that right now is primarily us and the people who are already on our side. So is increasing polarization the only barrier to success confronting us? No, there are at least 8 others. And I thought that this was a good visual for those 8. They're myths, tropes, tales, stories, urban legends, conspiracy theories, and fears that are barriers. And these are barriers that stand in our way, stand in the way of single payer, and you're going to confront them if you go door to door. If you're at the holidays talking to your Uncle Ed, all right? If you're talking in a group of people who really are like these some Minnesotans, you're going to find that these barriers are there, they come up. They're in the minds of people. They're embedded in their minds. They've been embedded in their minds by the media over the last 20, 30 years. Now, I'm not saying you debate these barriers that I'm about to come up show you. You don't take these barriers head on. These concerns are in large part deeply, deeply rooted, and in another part, they're irrational. All right? Their fears have been implanted in people, in my opinion. I'm saying when you hear these concerns, you need to pivot to the practical benefits of single payer, because they're great practical benefits of single payer. So what are these 8 mythical concerns? Well, here we go. Trope stories, urban legends. The first one is, government isn't the solution, government is? Thank you, Ronnie Reagan. Thank you. I thought that was a nice picture of him, even though I think he's despicable. But, sorry. I don't know. When he became president, I was working in public interest group in DuPont Circle, and it was in the building where all the public interest groups were. And the day he was inaugurated, we worried they were going to circle the building and take us all out, right? That's what we thought. We were wrong, but he did not. Okay, so first, that is something that's been implanted in people's minds. It's been picked up. It started before Reagan. Reagan really helped to focus it. Newt Gingrich has pushed it, Grover Norquist, all of them. And it's out there. Government's the problem. Next, competition will create more choices. Oh, we'll drive down prices, I'm sorry. Who's that next to competition? Adam Smith. Yeah, another great guy. Notice these are guys, by the way. I'm sorry. Competition will drive down prices and increase quality because it's magic. It's magic bean competition. Magic beans. There's another magic bean, the next guy, the king. Competition will create more choices. Every man a king. That's, I think, what Huey Long said. And Burger King said, have it your way. Okay? So competition will create choice. And then there's my favorite. That's me about 10 years ago. All that travel really adds weight, let me just tell you. And it's not just water weight, it's real weight. The man who says, I'm invincible, why should I pay for health insurance? It should be my choice whether I get it or not. You know, I'm not in with the rest of you, basically. I call this mandate hate, okay? Because it came out of the Affordable Care Act. It's young men, mostly, who hate the mandate because they think they're invincible and they'll never need health care, and they feel not part of our community, really. They don't feel they need to be part of their community because I'm invincible. So that's the fourth one. And these are barriers that are in people's minds and are going to come up. When you're talking to people, you're going to hear this language. You're going to hear something like this. You can say, oh, I know what that is. I know what that barrier is. Next one, lawyer, guns, and money. That I call it the greedy trial lawyers are creating costs to rise. Okay, continuing down our list to the top three. Lazy people. It's lazy people. You know, those people who go to the emergency room, they aren't like me. I work hard, they get it for free. It's racial, it's ethnic, it's all sorts of resentment out there. And then, of course, you all notice the man in the middle. Karl Marx. Woohoo! Karl Marx. I just came across a survey of his done that went out in, I think it was 1878 in France among workers. It was really interesting. But socialized medicine. It's all socialism and it's coming to take over America. You know? Now you all applaud, but that other 23%, they would be scared of what you just applauded, right? And you know, and I understand why they're scared. I don't think it's rational, but I understand it. Okay? So when they go to socialized medicine, what do you have to go to? What the benefits are? And I'm going to tell you what the benefits are from these groups in a second. And then finally, my favorite are the apocryphal healthcare nightmare urban legends. They're all over the place. It's like in groups you're going, how do people, mostly men, I admit, how do people come up with this stuff? You know, stories of waiting, death boards, poor quality care, Canadians coming across the border to get health care because they can't get it in Canada. Rick, what were some other ones?
Everybody's got a nurse or a niece or a nephew that works in Buffalo or International Falls or somewhere who can swear that their doctor's offices are lined with Canadians who've come across for health care because they can't get it where they live. Of course, you know, they can't really say like who that was, but you know, it's like, well, I know a guy.
I know a guy, you know. It's like cats and dogs living together. It's bad, okay? That's really where it goes. And, you know, and we laugh about them because they are laughable, but to people, they're real. These are real. And all these 8 barriers are real. And we're not going to win by saying, no, you're wrong about this. That story isn't real. We're not going to win that way. You know, these stories, these memes, these urban legends stoke fear, they feed disillusionment, they drive people from their government, and they create barriers to single payer and a lot of other things, which is why they're there. There's one other that's not on this list, but everyone who loves Medicare for All should know about it. It's the VA. Because the VA is just, talk about, you know, is bad health care. And veterans have a real hard time with single payer or Medicare for All because they say, I know about government health care, and it's the VA. So these are the main barriers found in the focus group. What are the opportunities? Well, here's some simple ones. First, people know the system's broken. Second, healthcare is front and center as a policy concern. That's great. Third, people think costs are rising. 92% of Americans say costs are rising. I'm scared of it. There's falling coverage at the same time there's rising costs. There's more bureaucracy and red tape. And the new fun thing, there's talk of existing the coverage for pre-existing conditions. And that is the thing, in my opinion, that brought the ACA over the finish line. It was pre-existing conditions. So these are opportunities. There are opportunities to sell the real practical benefits of single payer to resolve these problems, okay? So we have to sell the real benefits, not the rhetoric, not the ideology, not the fervor, passion for it, So thank you for having fervor and passion for something good, because that's great. Not the politics of it. It can't be polarized politics. People are sick and tired of it. And not the correctness of our idea, because there are real problems with our idea, but it's a lot better than what we got, right? It's not like it's perfect. If still is perfect, you're in trouble. We got to sell the practical benefits of single payer to people. So what are those practical benefits? I did the opportunities, here are the benefits. So when you hear a barrier, think of that. You know, government isn't the solution, government's the problem. You don't say, no, you're wrong about that, sir. You say, here's a benefit of single payer. First, it provides access, and this is from directly what people want from the focus groups, provides access to care for all in a fair, responsible, and equitable way. And the key word here is access to care, not coverage. They don't care about coverage. They don't. That's the wrong language. It's access to care. And access to not a right, but a basic need, health care. So that's number one. So anytime we hear one of those bad barriers, you can go right here. Second, single payer is a simple, streamlined system. They hate how complex the system is. They hate in and out of network. They hate all the paperwork. They hate the codes. Oh my God, I know I had a thing on my leg and I got codes like you can't believe for this thing. They want a simple and streamlined system, and you can reasonably say that single payer provides that. They want cost savings. Who doesn't want cost savings? But they're even more primed for this right now. Though, if you look in the focus groups, simple, streamlined system beat cost out as a reason to support single payer, which I think is very interesting. What else do they want? They want quality to remain. Now, I think this is particular to Minnesota because there's good quality health care here. It might be different in Mississippi, right? But they want the quality to remain. And here's the biggie. Oh, at the end.
Yeah, we're running out of time.
Oh, okay, I'm going to go fast then. Going fast. It adds dental and vision care. And the people we talked to in the focus groups, you know, I got 5 more minutes, I'll be done, I'll go fast. I'll start speaking faster. It adds dental and vision care, and for the people in the focus groups, that's something that's beyond their ability, right? So you talk about streamlining the system, and you're getting vision and dental care in addition to your health care. That's critical. No more in and out of network shell game, and no worrying about pre-existing conditions. The benefit messengers provides access to care for all working people. Simple, streamlined system, small business people. Cost savings, small business people and farmers. Quality remains, doctors and nurses. And then we got stories on dental and vision care, in and out network. Basically, our people are great spokespeople on this. So, in conclusion, the findings presented are indicative of barriers, challenge, opportunities for single payer, but they're not representative. They're a guide that is much better than our gut instincts. But there's something I left to the very end, which will probably make Ben go nuts. What's in a name? Unfortunately, a lot. To many Minnesotans we talked to, single payer was a negative or unknown or misunderstood. We say single payer, they say it's kind of like socialism. We say single payer, they say we're all single payers already. They're confused. Right? We say single payer, they say, I know, it got me too. Canada has it, and it's a disaster. And we say single payer, and they say it's politicized. And you'll hear those are the barriers that we identified, right? But there's an alternative nationally on this. And this is the same poll. I'm almost there, Ben. This is the same poll, and Medicare for All polls 13% better than single payer, right? 63% instead of 50% support Medicare for All. Now, they don't know what Medicare for All is, and many of them believe it means Medicare for All seniors, which is someone who's approaching that. I'm all for it. Okay. So what do we do here? At the state level, we can call our solution something simple, descriptive, and unencumbered by negative baggage. In Minnesota, we have that. Senator Marty is here. The Minnesota Health Plan. And you say, Minnesota Health Plan is a single-payer plan? No, Minnesota Health Plan's a streamlined way to provide vision, dental, and health care and access to it to all Minnesotans. Really simple. You never have to say the word single payer in there. So they're great opportunities, they're big challenges, they're big barriers. We've identified some of those opportunities and challenges in this research. Together with this research, but more with all your hard work and with the way things are trending in this country, you can win single payer. You can do it. Oh. It ain't gonna be easy, as you know. But if we fight smarter, together we can win. It's really being about together on this thing. So thank you so much. Sorry I went over, Ben. I apologize.
All right, so we have about 6 or 7 minutes for questions and answers. And if the next panel could just kind of come up, you all are going to be in these red seats in the front. Then we'll have you ready to go in a few minutes. And one thing I want to say before we take these questions, you may wonder where this slideshow is. It's on the wiki for the conference. And actually, it was up yesterday, along with every other presentation in this conference. Whenever there's a background slide, not this one, but the ones we usually have up there along the bottom, it says, bit.ly/2018 Single Payer Strategy Conference. If you go to that, you can find literally the entire content of the conference. And it's built like Wikipedia, so you can actually add your own notes to any of the workshops you're at, any of the panels. If anything was really intriguing by this presentation, you had a reaction, some experience in your own organizing work that this resonated with, you can post it up on the wiki page for this presentation. So, we can only take a couple of questions, but hands up. All right. I'm going to be lazy here.
Thank you. 10 years ago, I did organizing, going door to door in a Senate campaign district, a state senatorial district, and the issues, one of the main issues, the prime issue that I ran on was the healthcare crisis and the need for Medicare for all. And I tried to inform leaders of our movement, including Healthcare Now, 10 years ago, that we should not use the term single payer, we should use the term Medicare for all, because door to door, in all these so-called Republican households, everybody responded positively when I pointed out that Medicare is so understood as an important thing, how important it is for every American family, and that we just need it for everyone. I ran into no problems going door to door with that message. I'm glad that the focus groups and everything for Healthcare Now have finally come to that realization that the important thing is to not use the single payer term and instead to use Medicare for all. So thank you.
No, thank you.
Next question.
Next slide, show.
Next question. Let's have a woman give the next question.
Yeah.
Is there any woman on this side of the room who has a question?
Thanks, man.
All right.
No worries.
Down to 24 minutes.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm from Vermont. We've done a lot of healthcare organizing, and I know it has to do with people's heads and how they define terms, but we started out using the word need, and people would be like, well, my son needs a new computer too, but I don't expect everybody to pay for that. Did you find any of that kind of response in using the word need?
Well, no, what was interesting, it's a great question. They came up with that term. It was not in our focus group discussion guide. We hadn't even thought about it. And in group after group, basic need came up. It's not a right or privilege. They hated right versus privilege. And I think the key might be there also basic need, because that underscores it a little bit more. Yeah. And probably in Vermont, you probably got 40% strong support. Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Yeah, I have a question. So I've been hearing a lot of data points today from a lot of different folks throughout the room, and your conversation about all of us working together. Is there a central database that all of us can collectively pool our data, talk to each other, so that we don't have to just continuously go and look for new sources, new econometric studies, and so on? Is it time? Do we have it? Can we make it happen?
I think that makes a heck of a lot of sense beyond my powers. But I think that makes a heck of a lot of sense. I've just seen that with many of the other movements that I've worked with, that having a centralized place for all this information and for messaging can be very, very helpful. And if you're saying, well, we don't want the trolls to figure it out, they already know it. So it can be very, very helpful. So great idea.
One last question.
Hi, Eric from California. Wow, too loud. Okay. I was wondering, I come from a very diverse state. I was wondering, I realize this is Minnesota, but I was wondering, did you find in your data anything outlier or very special around ethnic minorities?
No, but I'm sure there is. I'm sure there are differences that we did not plumb. And so I think, doing work within those populations, I think is very, very important.
Okay, thank you, Matt, and thank you, Minnesota nurses, for commissioning this really exciting study. Thank you so much.